Welcome to It's Never Too Late to Create. Today we're going to do a continuation of the projects that we had begun in episode 5 when we were using Frisket. And so you may recall or remember our blue background. And if this is all new to you, you might want to go back to episode 5 at some point and check to see what was going on there. Because what we did is we started with our drawing, and we are using this reference of a birch tree. And just with that dynamic blue background, some of these areas that I might want to keep white, but I might want to be freer with my background. Frisket might be an option of a supply that you want to pick up at some point and experiment with. So the Frisket is basically, it's like a rubber cement. It comes in a liquid form, and as you will see in episode 5, I showed you how I applied it. And I also showed you what happens when you have a big oops and a mistake. So today, that's the one that I'm going to show you just a couple techniques of what to do with once you have removed your Frisket and you're ready to go back into the painting. So let me just review all those steps again, because I meant to tell you, okay, we started with our drawing. Then we used our Frisket on the areas that we wanted to keep blocked out. Then we had to let that dry. And your Frisket has to be applied on dry paper. If you have moist paper, or you recently spritzed it and you apply your water-based Frisket, it's gonna right in there and you'll never get that out. So make sure you're working on dry paper. After our Frisket was dry, and we had already put in our background colors, our blue, and we let that dry. Then we took our rubber cement pickup, and you don't have to have this. You can roll the Frisket off just with your hand, but then again, make sure that your hands are clean. I touch my paper all the time. Some artists I've seen are very, very protective of the surface. I just work with, if I've created a mess, then I'll deal with that. But what I'm going to show you today, and basically all of these, we're kind of doing a watercolor 101. I am showing you some of the techniques that you can use for watercolor, and then I am hoping that you will take those and apply them to whatever masterpiece you're working on. So this is more for just getting used to what your supplies are. I started, I think I was in like 7th grade when the art teacher, I must have had us mixing colors. And also my father was an artist, so somewhere along the line I learned, I always think in color, or how would I mix that? And you will hear me talking about the color wheel all the time. But not today. Today I'm going to show you a few things. We're going to switch over to the top camera, and then I can show you some of the things we're talking about. And then once I have shown you some of these, I will shut up and I will just go ahead and work, and we'll speed things up. So if you're looking at the top camera, and this is what I'm talking about, these lines are all very, very, very sharp. Now, I can come, and this was our second piece. So this is the piece that I've actually been kind of playing with, and you can see I softened a lot of the areas. I've added a lot of pigment. I'm still working on things with this, but I can get as detailed or whatever as I want. But as you can see, I've either covered up or I've added to a lot of those sharp edges. And this resembled this when I started. And you will have seen that in episode 5. Okay. So what I'm going to show you is, at this point, I'm not going to take my spritzer bottle and spritz the whole thing, because that will activate basically that paint. And some of these fine lines that I kept with this mask pen, the one from the Frisket from the UK. If I were to wet the whole paper, depending on how much pigment I have in these other areas, it could absorb and just try to fill in those areas. Now, if you remember, part of our Frisket was also using this wax pen, or wax, it's a paraffin crayon. There's, you know, you could use a candle. If you had an old candlestick, just make sure the color isn't coming off. But there again, you know, if you want to play with this, I didn't pay that great attention to the first time. But maybe it's something that we want to add to some of these areas just to see what will it protect. This is just all experimentation. I'm not trying to turn this into a great work of art. It's a great work of discovery more than anything else. So don't treat a lot of what you're doing too precious right now. This is the important thing for you to do, is to practice. Learn your techniques. Now, if I were doing a more detailed painting, and this were something I'm spending a lot of time on, if I was going more realistic, I tend to have a lot of found objects around, and I have a few pieces of birch or different trees that I just find interesting, and I hang on to them, and I use them as source material when I am working with a painting. So that's just something to keep in mind if you are working on your trees or your plant life. It's always good to either do your drawings from the real thing or have your flower or whatever sitting in front of you to inspire you. You don't have to get every leaf in every same position. We need to just look at it for inspiration and look at it for color. If you have a interesting light source coming on for it, look for the shadows. So when we're looking at this reference page or picture, it was taken that I've got, you can tell the sun is coming from kind of a face forward to it. So when I was taking this picture, I'd say the sun was behind my head. But see, if you look at it closely, look at these nice little shadows on that underside of the tree. Now, another way for you as an artist to think about that is, are you the ant or are you the eagle? Are you looking at it from the lower space looking up, or are you coming down? So that has to do with your placement of shadows. But see, I'm getting off track again. That's another day. All right, today I'm just going to show you this. All right. I know I keep switching back from which camera I'm addressing. Now, I have just wet my brush, and I have some shapes in here that maybe I want to disguise or do something else with. These little round objects were my fingerprints as I dumped the Frisket on this page, and that's why I chose this one. I just wanted to show you, just kind of, work with whatever you have. So, with these hard edges, if you want to soften something up, for one thing, you need one of your brushes that is not near and dear to you. My brushes tend to, like, this brush would have started out just like that. This is an angle. This was a flat. But as you can see, I push back, I kind of scrub with it. So, if I add a little bit of water, and it's just like if you got something stuck on your counter and you just want to, at least for me, instead of standing there and trying to chisel it off, I will just add a little moisture to it and come back in a few minutes and it'll be softened up. And your watercolor is going to be doing basically the same thing. So see, I can take this from being this uber sharp line and then soften it. And that's how you can get things to read a little bit softer, so they're not commanding so much attention. Because if you find that your painting might be a little just flat and you're not quite sure what's going on, take a look and see, the hard edge is going to draw your eye to it. So are you filling the whole page with a bunch of hard edges? And so you're confusing your viewer by, what do I look at? Another way a person or artist, a few people I've heard talk about it, is they will say 20% detail, 80% suggestion. All right. That's softening the edges. Another thing, and as I said, don't use, if this is one of my better brushes, I'm not going to use it necessarily. I usually, at this point, I switch. This brush is the replacement brush to this one. This was the brush that was recommended to me when I did start painting, and what I did to get myself back on track, because now I look back and when I graduated from school, and then I wasn't working as creatively as an artist in training might, because jobs, and a couple of my jobs had a little bit of an art connection to them, but as I got older, less and less. And now I'm seeing that's the thing, because now that I can sit here and paint all day and pretend to be a real artist, I'm improving, but I'm getting some of my skills back, because drawing and all this, it's just like anything else. If you're not practicing it all the time, you're not necessarily going to be that great. Same thing with your instrument. If you're picking it up even just a little bit every day, you're keeping those cylinders firing a little bit better than. So I spent a lot of years just not drawing anything, and so now I come back and I'm like, whew, she's a rusty. What I did is I signed up for a local class in watercolor, And I sat there as a beginner and I absorbed everything she said. I wasn't going to walk in there and go, oh, I have a degree in art. Because I hadn't really spent that much time in that watercolor class. And everybody teaches a little bit differently. So this is why I'm always recommending you go and you join your local art guilds, because the ones around here, at least, they always have demos monthly, and they bring in the professionals, and it might not be a medium that you are even aware of or interested in, or maybe you don't use it right now, but I recommend that if you go to these and listen and watch the different artists, you always pick up something. And of course now you got the internet and you can Google anybody and learn a whole lot of stuff real quick. So you can stay home too. All right. I've redrawn a few of these lines. Also, when I was doing this one, I was using these paints. And I am going to put those to the side for now. And the other demo, this one, I was using this tray of paints. So I am going to switch to this tray and give myself a little elbow room. All right. So, before I totally turn off your sound here, I'm just going to show you how I have already dumped a lot of water into these pans. I just have not mixed them up. If you were to see them, you would say, hey. I'm just coming in here. This is actually, the background right now is a cooler blue. Do you see the kind of the reddish in there? And what I've picked up right now is a warmer blue. I've got more yellow in here. Now I can come in here, and right now I'm using dry brush. I have not wet this paper, and that is partially why you see the paint going on the way you do. Plus, I'm using it very thickly. This is Dick Blick, the manganese, and it's a good student grade paint. Well, they call it a professional. It's a good value paint then, because it's got a lot of power to it, and the tubes are less expensive than your Winsor Newton, Holbein, Daniel Smith. Da Vinci was the one I couldn't remember the other day. All right. I'm just going to keep working on this, and you can see how sometimes I might be cutting in with just paint to cover up some of these areas, or add branches, switch the color. In my reference photo, a lot of these branches out here are in shadow and they're quite dark. Right now everything is so light, and I'm not going to be following this exactly. I'm just going to kind of play with it and go where my lines go and let things develop. Also, on this is my tray that has more opaque, or what I consider the opaque. There's a little bit of white in quite a few of these colors. So this tray I use it only for that type of thing. Now, when I was using the Pro Art tray, that's our little set that, you've seen these everywhere and anywhere at any of your craft stores. A lot of nice, powerful color. They also have a white, and so on some of these I started playing with just adding branches, because as you see, I kind of went nocturnal. I'm always kind of experimenting with, what can we do with this? So I'm just going to dump this paint on here. I just wanted to show you that let's see. Let's rinse out. More so, I'm showing you a brush. When we're working with these tinier lines, if you get yourself some of these, this is called a liner. Another, you will hear it's called a script. They're a thin, narrow brush. And you can, what's good is that, see, you've got all of this, the fibers. They're going to hold more pigment for you, and they'll let you paint a little bit longer. Because if I am trying to paint, see, if I had thought, oh, I'm going to talk about this, I would have pulled out the brush. But I just want to show you, if I were going to paint with something like this, which is also a very tiny brush, but it's half the length, I'm not going to get as long of a line when I load that up. But let's see what happens. All right, so when I'm doing this type of thing, I'm also kind of checking the strength. What is this white going to do for me? How opaque is it? How, can I come back here and make that pop out a little bit more? And it's doing fine. As I said, I'm not going to particularly sit there and look at this picture and go, okay, so it first goes this way, and then just kind of give yourself the freedom to develop it the way you want it to. And if you're just stumped, look out your window. Hopefully you have a tree nearby somewhere that you can use for inspiration. I use the trees out my window all the time. So, if your set does have white, you can come back in here and pull out a lot of things. And this is all just a matter of getting used to the materials that you have in your toolbox and see what you can come up with. But see, what I like about this type of brush is that you can kind of play with it a little bit more and just let it dance. Work on that calligraphy of your hand. Because if you sit here like this, all tight, and you're trying to bring this branch out of here, and then that, that's when you're, my crazy line. Try to look at your branches, and you'll see how they kind of segment each other. And I'm coming back to this little brush just to show you that, yes, if I can come in here and I can still go, but see, my paint kind of dries out quicker here. Plus, I'm not getting quite the same line that I can get when I come in with this guy. So, see, because I can kind of trip it on itself, and then it will create a little bit more of that twig. Okay. So, I think that's pretty much what you will be seeing me do when I say, okay, I'm going to be quiet and I'm going to work on this, and then try to keep this episode a little bit more reasonable for you. So, I hope you pick up your tools today and get creative with something and go spread some love and kindness and joy. Also, I do have a lot of pencil line on here. If you are going to erase any of your pencil line, again, dry paper. Otherwise, you're just going to make it curl right up. Okay? So, and as you can see in this, whichever way we're looking, I've already just kind of knocked out that big blob. I could have turned it into part of another tree, I suppose, or branch if I had wanted to, but I'm just going with that structure. All right, I'm going to be quiet now, and I'm just going to kind of play with this. And another thing you might see me do is I don't always add paint. Sometimes I can just come in here and pull paint off of another area. Now, what I'm kind of laughing at myself for finding too also is that this this wax is kind of surprising me here and there. But see, I'm using my scrubby brush. This is a brush I don't really care. Well, it's not that I don't care about this brush. It's just that it's already beat up, and that's its purpose at this point. Now, I did put a lot of that wax right in this area. Let's see what happens. Now I'm just redissolving the paint that's already on the paper. Let's see. You can kind of create that nice shadow. Now I can just let that sit and dry. Very light. So if you're looking to make a pastel color, you're working with watercolors. So the more water you add to your pigment, the more pastel it's going to be. It's going to be a lighter color. See, I'm always attracted to darker values. I realize that's kind of a theme. Tonally, also very darker values. All right, I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to put this paint to the side. And I hope that you have learned a little bit about Frisket and how you can block out your little tree and just go have fun with it. And I'll see you at another time when I'm done doodling. All right. So I could keep going on this as long as I want. I mean, I can come back in here. I've got a little white on this in the dry areas. I could add more white brushes or branches. The white I am using, it's actually called gouache. So that's Gauche. Gouache is an opaque paint. It dries more matte. Designers use it quite a bit because it photographs with that matte without being all shiny and things. So it is also a water-based product, so you can use it with your watercolor if you want. And later on, we'll show you how to like flick a little bit more or make snow or things. But that's it basically for today. I just wanted you to know what to do with your painting when you were going to use Frisket. And then once you've removed it and you're like, oh, wow, look at all those hard lines. You know, it's not the end of the story. You can always work on things and soften them. As you can see, I just kind of throwing things out there. If I wanted more of these white branches in here, a lot of this is wet. So I might as well show you what will happen if you start adding too much if it's wet. I've got a lot of paint on there. Let me get a better mix here. A lot of times I don't go around and if I'm starting some big thing that I'm going to work on all day, I will go around and remix all my pigments that I've reactivated because some of them do dry kind of clunky. So to bring them back to a smooth consistency. But a lot of times I only stir what I'm working with. If that's a slide job. Now, when you're on something like this is a tree, so you can go wherever you want with your line. It's like I did take some classes with Jean Rozier Smith, and she always said they're not going to know if that wave looks exactly like that, or you can't say that wasn't the way that wave looked. And I hold that to heart. Same thing with your trees. Look for the basic shapes. Because what we're trying to do is we're trying to paint more of a feeling or an atmosphere. So I guess my graduating with the paint what you feel, I'm starting to see it come back to life and I'm understanding it a bit better. But also, as I've gotten older, when I first graduated, I had no clue what was I going to say as an artist. I'm starting to figure that out. So you'll be hearing more from me. Because I do find it amazing that some people supposedly have never heard of the Holocaust. Wow. We have to do better. So, anyway, you'll get me off on one of my tangents here. So I just want you to go out there, spread joy, enjoy yourself with your paints and your creativity and the possibility of giving yourself another tool to maybe focus on, you know, if you have something that you need to work out on. My creatives have always carried me through. Now I see, even when I wasn't drawing, I was always being creative. My music was the one taking the priority. And I know how it is when you're working a full-time job. I always worked the jobs where you cannot sit on your butt and do something other than what you were hired for. So people that have that luxury of, oh, I watched a video at work. Wow, I just never had that kind of job. Oh yeah. Boy, where was I going with that? All right, we're just going to sign off, and I might show you one more thing. No, we're just going to sign off. Thank you for tuning in to Never Too Late to Create, Episode 7, continuation of Episode 5. And we fade to black.